Hello and welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles. Today we need to have another conversation, and I'm gonna be honest, this discourse in particular I find very fucking exhausting, but it keeps coming up over and over again for no valid reason, so we're gonna talk about it. Typically, I'm not one for disclaimers at the beginning of my videos, especially ones like this, because at the end of the day, I said what I said and I meant it. So let me go ahead and set the record straight now. Number one, I'm not arguing with anybody. As far as I'm concerned, nothing that I say in this video is up for debate. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. If you want to have a conversation, we can do that. Secondly, if at any point I say something that makes you feel personally called out or attacked, that's not my problem, and that's something for you to unpack on your own. Now, in order for a book to be considered Black love or Black romance, it needs to meet certain criteria. Number one, it needs to be written by a Black author. Okay? That makes sense, right? The second thing is that everyone in the relationship, regardless of if it's 2 or 5 people, everybody in the relationship needs to be Black, okay? I feel like that's pretty straightforward, but apparently that confuses some people. If we're talking about an author like Talia Hibbert, who typically writes Black women with either white men or other non-Black men, that is not Black love. That is an interracial relationship, therefore it's an interracial romance. I feel like that should be pretty self-explanatory also, but that trips people up. Now, for some reason, if a non-Black author were to write a romance about 2 Black people, which they shouldn't because they haven't lived the Black experience, therefore they can't speak on it, but unfortunately we already know that this has happened. That still is not Black love. It is a love story that includes 2 Black people, but it does not meet the criteria to be considered Black love. Now, my biggest issue with this conversation is the way that people will go out of their way to say that they don't like reading Black romance because it always includes some sort of trauma, oppression, or struggle. If you've been around my channel for a little while, then you know that I did not start reading romance until a couple years ago. It wasn't until after I started my booktube channel and really got immersed in the book community that I decided that I wanted to do a deep dive into romance and see if it is a genre that I could enjoy. In the past 2 or so years, when I have been really making an attempt to read romance as a Black woman, I naturally gravitated towards Black love, and very few of the books that I have read in that time span have included any of those things, which is how I know that y'all are lying. And there are a few things that contribute to that. First and foremost, a lot of people are calling things romance when they are not. 7 Days in June is not a romance, okay? The crux of that story is about addiction. It just happens to include 2 Black people that are somewhat in a relationship, if that's what you want to call it, but that is not a Black love story. If we're being honest, another part of the problem is that y'all allow certain liberties for white authors that you do not allow for Black authors. For example, people who say that they don't like street lit because they don't like gangs or violence or whatever the case may be, particularly referring to Black books that may include that, those same people eat up a mafia story. And at the end of the day, there's not much difference. There are also times when it can be a contemporary just following a couple in their day-to-day life, but it might include something like loss of a loved one or getting a medical diagnosis, things that happen in real life, in real everyday life. And y'all will call it trauma in a book by a Black author or about a Black couple, but read the same thing by a non-Black author and talk about how it was so realistic and it made sense and you could relate and it was so moving and it made you cry and all these other things. I'm not even going to get into the conversation about not liking Black love because of the way that it portrays Black men, which is in a positive light. That level of anti-Blackness is something that you need to work out with your therapist. Another thing that I've learned about romance throughout my own deep dive is that there are so many different subgenres that literally there is something for everyone, regardless of what you're looking for, whether it's cowboys, royalty, paranormal, or just regular doctors. All of that exists within Black romance. Some of y'all just refuse to look for it, and at the end of the day, if you needed recommendations, you could have just asked instead of getting on Beyonce's internet with these hot takes that are completely fucking invalid. Speaking of recommendations, I did do a rec video for Black Love Day back in February, so I will have that linked in the cards and in the description. I'm hoping to do another recommendation video hopefully before the end of the year, but bottom line is Black love is valid, and if you don't like it, you don't have to read it, but don't come on the internet saying that you can't find Black love with or without certain elements when you just didn't look. Now, I'm not telling people what they can and can't read. If you want to read Emily Henry and Allie Hazelwood all day, every day, then go for it, live your best life. However, you can read those things and talk about how much you enjoy those things without feeling the need to shit on Black love for absolutely no reason, and 9 times out of 10, the complaints are inaccurate anyway. So I just wanted to get that off my chest because I'm tired of the TikToks and the Twitter threads and all that stuff. But that is all I have for you today. I will see you in the next video.